chocolate torte. It's pretty simple actually. I'm going to start with the crust. So I'm going to start with the almond meal, which is the main part of the crust, and it's actually 2 cups of almond meal. You could grind the almonds yourself actually if you're feeling pretty ambitious, or they now sell this at several supermarkets. You can just buy it, and that's actually what I did. So I'm going to just put this in the bowl, and then the next thing that I'm going to use is cocoa powder. This is actually unsweetened cocoa powder. There's no sugar in it at all. It's very bitter. Doesn't taste very good by itself. 2 tablespoons. Put that in right with my almond meal. And then this is just simple sea salt. Just about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Just gonna put a couple pinches of sea salt. I like to mix my dry ingredients first, so I'm just gonna mix that up a little bit, just so I can incorporate the salt and the cocoa powder. So I'm actually not going to cook this crust. I'm just going to put the rest of the couple more ingredients in, and then I'll put it in the freezer for a little bit. So next, I'm going to add a little bit of sweetener, so it's a little bit sweet, but it's not overpowering, and this is maple syrup. I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, and this is actually grade B maple syrup. I haven't tried it with another sweetener, although if you want to experiment, you're more than welcome to. And then the next thing, I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. And I think this just helps stick it together a little bit. Not too much of the coconut flavor comes out, but gives it a little bit of that richness. And then I'm just going to mix this up. So I've just finished mixing these all together. And it's not super wet. You might feel like, is there enough liquid? You can always add a little bit more if you like, if you want a little bit more of a dense crust. But I think it's kind of nice in contrast with the thick torte to have like a little bit of a drier crust, but that's totally up to you. So this is a springform pan. You might be familiar with it. The bottom, you can take out the bottom easily, and it makes it a little bit easier to serve it. You can also flip it over if you want to, and you can also layer it, and it looks really pretty if you layer things on it. So I'm just patting it down with a spatula. Nothing too crazy. And then I'm just gonna pop it into the freezer. Actually, I've seen recipes like this where they bake it for 10 minutes, and you could do that. If you wanted a little bit crunchier, you could bake it. I've done a lot of raw food in the past, so I sometimes just like to keep things simple. So, all right, so I'm gonna put this in the freezer. So we just put our gluten-free crust in the freezer just for about 10 minutes or so. That was mostly the almond meal crust. And now we're going to work on the filling for the chocolate vegan gluten-free torte. So I'm going to start by heating up some milk. And this is, I said, vegan, so I'm using a cup of almond milk. And then I'm just going to turn on the oven, just kind of to medium or so. I don't want to boil it, but I do want to get it, pretty hot. This is coconut cream. It's basically if you took the cream out of a can of coconut, is what you would get. I've done this recipe several times, and I've used just almond milk. I've used coconut milk from the carton, and it's pretty. This recipe is pretty flexible, so it'll work. This is just going to make it a little creamier and get it nice and rich and thick. And then also, I'm going to add some tapioca flour, and that's just a tablespoon of tapioca flour. So I'm going to just put this in. And this helps it, tapioca, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but it's a little bit gelatinous. So it's just going to help firm up the torte. And a lot of tortes, some tortes are gluten-free on their own, but a lot of tortes have a lot of eggs. So instead of using the eggs, I'm just using the heavy coconut cream and a little bit of that tapioca flour. So I'm just going to incorporate this. You want to make sure that it gets incorporated really well, so that you don't have anything left on the bottom of the pan. And this, just getting nice and warm, because this is actually how we're going to melt the chocolate. I'm not going to put the chocolate in the microwave. I'm not going to do it over the double boiler. I'm just gonna pour this nice, hot, creamy liquid right over the chocolate. So I just wanna make sure that that is nice and warm enough. And I'm gonna just turn that down just a little bit more. And it's getting it right to the spot before it's boiling. So we're just gonna leave that just for a little bit, and I'll tell you about some of the other ingredients. So this is our chocolate. This is 1.5 cups of dark chocolate. It is semi-sweet, so it does have some sugar in it. So if you don't want any sugar in your diet, you can still do this recipe. You just wanna make sure you get 100% dark chocolate, but that's gonna make your recipe pretty bitter. So you're gonna have to add more sweetener if you wanna do that. So this was just chocolate that I got in bulk, and I cut it up with a knife. You can make it easier for yourself. Just get chocolate chips or whatever brand is your favorite chocolate and do anything you like. Just coming back to this a little bit, checking on it. We're almost there. Just a little bit longer. And the other 2 ingredients or 3 ingredients that we're going to use are maple syrup, and that's just going to get a little bit more sweetness. I like it a little bit sweet. And then the coconut oil, we're going to add that as well, and that also helps thicken up the torte. When the coconut oil, we're going to put this in the fridge eventually to set. That coconut oil is going to go from liquid to solid, and it's going to firm this torte nice, so no one's even going to know that this is vegan or gluten-free, and they're going to love it. The other just last ingredient is a little bit of vanilla. And I love vanilla. I use more vanilla than anyone else. You can kind of go on what you like. So I think that we are ready. Just test this. Be careful, don't burn yourself. Don't try this at home. Okay. So before I pour it right over the chocolate, I'm just going to incorporate the coconut oil and the maple syrup and get that all together. And I didn't do the coconut oil on the stove just because it's kind of sensitive, and I like to keep the ingredients kind of as natural as possible, and all the benefits of those ingredients as natural as possible. So, and that's about it. And we're just gonna pour this right over. All right. And just gonna mix it up in here. And it might take a little bit until we get into the beautiful thickness. And that's basically it. Once we get this all mixed up, I'm gonna take the crust out of the freezer, and I'm gonna pour that right in there. And then it does need to set for about 4 hours. And I did forget the vanilla, so let's not forget about the vanilla. Let's put that in there. Just add a little bit of extra pizzazz. All right, so it's all incorporated now, nice and smooth, velvety chocolate. So if for some reason it's not getting nice and smooth like this, the milk probably wasn't hot enough. So you can always cheat a little bit, put it on the stove top, just to melt it a little bit, just really low temperature so you don't burn the chocolate. There's nothing worse than burnt chocolate. So, all right, so now we're done. Easy. So we're just gonna grab that crust. And then I'm just gonna pour this right in. All right, make sure I get all the edges. Okay, and that's it. So this is the chocolate torte. I'm gonna put it in the fridge at least 4 hours. Sometimes you wanna do this the night before, it'll make your life easier so you're not waiting on it. What I love to do is sometimes garnish this with like a nice Himalayan sea salt, a little rock salt. It tastes really good. If you don't want to do the salt, if you don't like the sweet and savory thing, you can always put a couple raspberries on it, put a couple extra chocolate chips. You can get your cake decorating bag out and go crazy. So totally be as creative as you want. And I'm just going to put this in the fridge. Last night I made a chocolate vegan gluten-free torte, and I put it in the fridge overnight. So today I'm just going to grab that out of the fridge. And I'm actually going to take this with me to Thanksgiving dinner. So here it is, and it's set up pretty nice. And I'm just going to take a knife and I'm just going to go around the edges of the pan. And this is going to help when you take the springform pan off, it just pulls away a little bit, and that will help this not separate too much or break in the center. So I'm going through the crust in the bottom, just all the way around. Alright, almost there. So I'm going to take this off. And I'll see what we've got here. Alright, so I just want to show you kind of what it looks like. So nice little crust under here. Thick chocolate mousse torte here. And then I am actually going to put another softer chocolate mousse on top. And I'm going to put some raspberries on it and make it look really pretty. And then I'm not going to do this right now because I'm going to get in the car for 4 hours. So I'll try to take a picture of this for you later as the finished product. All right, have a great Thanksgiving.
I don't want pork chops and bacon that won't awaken my appetite inside. I want the frim sauce with the os and fade with chef offer on the side.